Good to see you today. Thank you so much for joining me. It's great to have you here. And folks, don't forget if you're just joining us, would you sign in? Let me know where you're watching from, and would love to get to know you a little better. Folks, don't be afraid to leave comments, to have questions, whatever you'd like to do. This is a conversation between all of us, not just our guests, and I want you to be involved as well. So, anyway, great day today in Nashville. It's a beautiful day outside. Our autumn, fall is in the air, and the trees are just starting to change colors, and I love this time of the year. So awesome. So, folks, once again, would you let me know where you're watching from? Whether you're watching, and also wherever you're watching on whatever social media, it will also display on the screen. And would you let people know that we're on? Say, so what are you doing right now? You ought to turn in to the Sanctuary International podcast and watch. So tell your friends, and be great to have you all join us today as well. So we've got Richard Lynch ahead. Richard from Saint, great guy, and he's been doing this for a while. And I appreciate his heart, appreciate his ministry through all of these years. And we'll have a great time talking about it. Also, Morten will be here with me from Denmark. And excited to hear how he's doing and how the worship project is going there as well. Stephen Cole is here today. Good morning, Pastor Bob, he says. Good morning to you, Stephen. And folks, again, let me know where you're watching from. Joel is here from Melbourne, Australia. Good to have our friends from down under. And it's after midnight there. So thank you for staying up with us. Appreciate that. You know, I think a lot of metalheads are nocturnal anyway, aren't they? Jonas is here with us also from Kenya. He said, wishing you a wonderful week. And thank you, Jonas. Great guy. It's afternoon there. And we appreciate him. Barry is good. We love him very, very much. Barry Morrison. Good morning, Pastor Bob and the Sanctuary family. We are metal, we are family, and I appreciate that, folks. Again, if you're just joining me, let us know where you're watching from. And our good friend AB is here. Great guy. He says, how are you? How are you? I'm doing great today, and I hope you are too, AB. Great to see you. Rodney Jeffrey, our good friend from Queensland, Australia, is here. And we got some great Aussie folks here today. I like that. And so, folks, again, if you're just joining us, let me know where you're watching from. And some of you are on YouTube, some of you are on Facebook, a variety of places. We have a lot of other spots that people are watching. We're on Rumble now as well, getting ready to go on quite a few others. We're on Discord, et cetera, et cetera. So many of you are watching on a lot of different platforms, and I just appreciate you joining us. So we've got a great time coming up, not this weekend, but the next one with the Sanctuary Gathering. And our theme is Death is Dead. You say, well, Pastor Bob, we've done that before. We have, but we're doing it again. It's a kind of a good, how would you say, a good Halloween theme, but it's a really great statement when you're a Christian. And we're going to be doing baptism that day. If you're in the area locally and you've never been baptized and would like to, we're going to be doing water baptism. And death is dead is part of what baptism is all about. So new life in Jesus Christ. So that's Saturday, November 2nd, and then Sunday, November 3rd, which is my birthday. We'll be doing church service then. So if you're in the Nashville area, please join us. We'd love to see you at that if you'd like to. if you'd like to come. Next week, we're going to have Sean Browning here, and he's going to be part of our Halloween celebration. Sean is from a band called Grave Robber, and many of you are very familiar with the band. Unique band, very unique ministry. And we're going to probe the heart of Sean Browning. He's a great guy. He's been a great friend to this ministry for a very long time, and we're excited to have him on the show. So, folks, once again, would you make sure that you sign in? Let us know where you're watching from. Leave any comments or questions, whatever. So our online community, we've got a great community. We've got quite a few different podcasts. Of course, a lot of you watch mine, my Pastor Bob's Coffee Break. So What with Chris Dorman and Don Waite, a great theological foundation. They've been doing it for a few years and really, really great. The Odd Couple, of course, is a podcast that I do with the police chief. And it's always an interesting show. Heaven's Metal, a lot of you grew up with Heaven's Metal magazine, and the editor-in-chief, of course. And, it's a great show about bands from the past, bands in the present, and just a little bit of everything. So Doug Van Pelt is part of that. And of course, great Scott Aaron with his show with us too. So, and many more coming that I can't wait to tell you about. And I want to invite my co-host on with me to talk about one more podcast that we're fixing to do. There's Morten.
Hey, Bob. Good to see you.
Good to see you. So Morten and I have been friends for a lot of years. Morten joins us from Denmark today. And yes. Morten, I have to kind of remember where you're at because you travel a lot, don't you?
Yeah. I'm in Denmark right now. I'm actually in my office. I'm 2 stories above the studio. So this is the office for Youth for Christ. I don't know how big that is in the States, but I know it's big in
pretty big, yeah.
UK, yeah.
Yeah.
In Kenya also, actually. There, I think in more than 50 countries. But here in my hometown, I have a little workplace here. So I'm not employed by YFC, but I get to work here because they're all friends from church, and they have a good studio in the basement where I can work on the worship project. So that's great.
That's awesome.
They let me do that.
Let's talk about the worship project. And I also want to talk about a new podcast that we're about to put together. The whole idea of heavy metal worship has really been on our hearts for the last year at least, and a little more, where God began to really put it in our hearts to lead the movement with worship, with heavy metal worship. And you were one of those people that had the idea. You guys put a project called At the Mountain together, and we'll talk about how that's coming along in a minute. But we thought, we really need a podcast that just zeroes in on worship. And so I've asked 4 different guys to do it, and it'll probably be once a month, I think. And we'll talk about that as we go. But Morten, you and Jonas are going to do Jonas from Kenya. We're going to Mouse from Holland, and then our own Jim Laverty from Sanctuary in Nashville. But it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it'll be really cool to put the spotlight on all the bands that are doing this stuff and just all the new things that are coming out. And I'm sure there's a lot on the brink.
Yes, there are so many projects right now. We're very excited about it, and we're kind of lagging behind a little bit. We need to speed the process up a bit. But you guys have been speeding the process up. Tell us how things are going.
Yeah, it's going well. Yeah, so mostly we're still working on the songs, on the structure and polishing the songs, and just getting everything to a final structure of the song. So we actually shipped out the first song to a friend in South Africa, actually, who's gonna do some mixing. So I'm doing some raw mixing, but that's mostly just to get the basic structure of the song and get all the levels and stuff to show him what we want to do with the song. So we're expecting that back in a week or two, and it's a good friend of ours that we can talk about at some point. But he's doing just one song to see if that's the direction we want to take it, and so it's something we obviously are going to pray over if it's the right sound and everything, and if it is, that'll definitely speed things up. Yeah.
Right. Well, to tell the story a little bit again, you guys got together and recorded how many songs in how many days?
Yeah, so roughly 13 songs in less than a week, in equivalent to like 4 or 5 full days from dawn till from morning till late evening. And so obviously these were just very raw structures and not anything like finished or anything like that. Just a bunch of ideas and a bunch of stuff that came to us during prayer. And so we started every day and ended every day in prayer, and also had what we call like prayer jams. We would just crank it up and see what came off it. We'd had some really long jams, and recorded everything and dug down into it and saw what we felt something was worth pursuing, and some of that stuff also got turned into songs now. So that's pretty interesting for us.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely first time for all of us to work on an album like this. We've all released a lot of music in different genres, mostly hard music, of course.
Yes.
This, for all of us, this is such a love project, and something that we feel God is inviting us into. We're very, very excited about and humble about as well. It's a little different to work on something where you really feel like it's more like God's project. God invited us to partner on something.
Yes.
It's a little different from just writing cool stuff and putting something Christian on top of it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and Morten, you're no stranger to performance. You've had several bands. Your band, Barricade, was I think the first Christian metal band in Denmark. Years ago.
There were a few other attempts before that, and also some really early stuff back in the 80s. But I think we're probably the first ones like to hit the major stages and like play like the secular scenes and hang out with bands and get out there and really get to play the stuff. Yeah, I think so.
And you've had several bands since, and of course Captain Rosalind, one of my favorites. You guys did a great job with that one.
Thanks. Jonas and I started that band, but we put that on a break now to focus on this project.
Yeah, absolutely. Some great folks that are involved with that. So I'm getting very excited to be back in Denmark in March. And
same here. And I actually just booked tickets back to Kenya to the end of November. We'll have a full more week almost to polish on the songs together, and also record some stuff there that we need to work on some vocals together, and I really just rehearse and try to play these finished songs in a more live setting, so we can be ready for you coming here in March.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to be there and excited to see the Denmark gang again for the Green Light Worship Festival.
Yeah.
Yes. We'll do that. We've done a festival there called the Green Light District. This will kind of be a little bit of that. So folks, if you're just joining us, would you like this, especially on YouTube? That goes a long ways, doesn't it, Morten?
Well, sorry, I was just reading Jonas's comment there. See you in Kenya soon, so I forgot to listen.
Okay. If you just like it and subscribe, of course, that would help us a lot. And we're having a lot of trouble getting our YouTube stream out. It just doesn't happen. So you could help us with that if you would, and appreciate you being part of that. So, Morten, how are things going for you? How is life in Denmark?
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Yeah, it's we're heading into winter here, and right now it's the afternoon, as you know.
Yes.
And I think it's a good season. So up here in the north, as you know, the days are very short right now, and it's a dark season. It's typically the type of year where I write music. because it's just it's just dark,
Yeah,
which
dark.
suits me all right. I'm not the winter depression type of guy. I just roll the curtains down and enjoy the darkness, and very often go into a writing spree in this season. So it's for me, I enjoy it. But I also really like to go to a warmer place in the middle of it, because it's long. It's a really long, dark winter up here in the
Yeah.
north. So it's really nice to be able to. I feel really blessed that I can go to Kenya, down to Jonas and Terry in November.
Yeah, that'll be good for you. You've got about how many 6 hours of light, would you say? In the
Yeah, so
middle
it's over Amsterdam, and then I think it's an 8 or 9 hour flight actually. So it's a total
Okay,
of it's
that's better.
typically it takes like 12 hours to get there, but there's a layover in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how much light do you have right now in Denmark? It gets dark. I remember it got dark at about 1600, and then
Yeah. Yeah, it's not too bad yet, but in a month or two, it'll the sun will go down at 3:45 p.m. So that's
yeah,
pretty early, and we won't see the sun until like in the middle of the morning. So
yes.
yeah, so
Yeah.
that's
So,
that's
and
quite
I
all right.
understand it's dark, it's a little moody, and so that's a good time
Yeah,
to write
yeah,
songs.
it's the time where we bring out the candles and we get a
Yes.
little more cozy. We have a Danish word for it, hygge. It basically means to get all cozy and snuggle up with a blanket and some candle lights and put on some chill music or whatever people want to do.
Yeah.
Personally, for me, I'll put on some metal, of course, and,
Yes.
and just enjoy having an open window and a really cool breeze of air and some frosty wind. That's nice.
So Max, your son, is he a metalhead? What kind of music does he?
Very much. Yeah. And his friends too. He's evangelizing in this class. So my son is in international school. Whenever he brings home the kids from school, he goes,
Yes.
"Oh, you got to hear my dad's band." He'll do like, "Whoa!" They'll start jumping and screaming and, "Show me that band where you set your guitar on fire." Yeah, that's awesome. He's totally into it. I really do feel like that generation, let's call them 6 to 10 year olds, I
Yeah.
think they're absolutely getting into metal. And I talked to some folks here at the office because they have kids the same age. They say they'll come home and ask for daddy to put on Enter Sandman or something like that, to put on old Metallica album. They even into some of the classics. And so that's very encouraging to me, because to me, at least here in Europe, everywhere I go, the teenagers and let's say 14, 18-year-olds, they'll be into no, more like hip
Yeah.
hop.
Right.
Sorry, I did a really bad impression there. I didn't even mean to mock them. If you're into that, that's awesome. It's just not exactly what I particularly enjoy. But so I'm very happy to see that there's some young headbangers lining up for the next generation. Probably in 5-10 years, we can get them into some of the scenes.
Yeah, and maybe at some point they could just get into some real music.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be
Yes,
good.
exactly.
Yeah. Well, metal is changing, and there's a whole new generation
Yeah.
that's coming up that
Yeah.
loves the music. We've got Richard Lynch with us today, and talk about a whole new generation that are just beginning to find some of the great bands.
Yeah.
Saint will be they'll be with me actually in Switzerland in
Wow,
March,
awesome.
and
At Elements of Rock.
so, yeah, and then Elements of Rock, and they'll be doing quite a few other festivals, a couple of them in Germany, and other places. We'll talk to him about that in just a minute. But it's kind of good, not only the new bands that are coming out, and Chaotic Resemblance, and some of those that are
Really,
still
really good stuff.
a similar style, but newer bands, younger bands. But it's just been great for the older bands.
Yeah.
And you know, Morten, we've done Immortal Fest for 3 years now. By the way, we will be doing Immortal Fest again next year. I'm announcing it here,
That's
and
awesome. Yeah.
we'll
Really
be.
hope to be there this time.
I hope so. We'll be doing part 1 and part 2.
Yeah.
Part 1, we're also incorporating the Sanctuary 40th anniversary celebration. With
Yes.
our worship band will be there. We're going to have the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame. We're going to actually do a metal museum with a lot of
That's
old
awesome.
artifacts from
Yeah.
beginnings of Striper on down. And
Yeah, I was just gonna say some old Striper stuff, and yeah, I know you guys got some of that laying around. That's super cool. Can't wait to see that, man.
we've got Michael Sweet's first drum set that he traveled with. We've got
Beautiful.
the original big Striper sign that's lit up that they used at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And, it's 4 foot by 10 foot. It's huge. That'll be coming with us. Yeah, lots and lots of
I
stuff.
think it'll be super interesting. Also because I just mentioned some of these really young folks, like 8-10 years old folks, being into really classic music, classic metal, which is super cool and very interesting to me. And I see these genres maybe start to blend a bit more. So yeah, just like we see in fashion and other areas of society, we see 80s, 90s coming back and getting back into style and mixing into whatever, all these styles coming together. I think it's just going to be beautiful to see how God is going to use the old tones and the new tones and bring all that into a new mesh up. That's just awesome.
And rediscovering the old.
Yeah.
Well, Morten, we're going to take a short break, and you and I will be back, and we'll be joined by Richard Lynch, and we want to ask him a lot of questions.
I'm excited to meet him. That's awesome.
See where they're going. All right. Well, folks, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hello, family. I'm excited to be with you this year at Light the Dark Festival. We're going to have a great time in Norrköping, Sweden, March 28th and 29th. Great bands, great fellowship. I can't wait to be there with you. Don't miss it, folks. Get your tickets now. They're on sale. And I'll look forward to seeing you in March.
Coffee! Anybody?
And welcome back. We have a special guest with us here today. He is no stranger to most of you, and I know we have a whole lot of Saint fans out there that are joining us. Richard Lynch is here. Richard, there he is.
Hey, everybody.
Good to see you.
Hey.
Good to see you. Nice to meet you.
Good to see you too, man.
This is Morten, and Morten is a good friend. We've worked together for a lot of years in Denmark, and Richard, we almost don't know where to start. I'd love to talk about Saint through the years. I guess the first question would be, and I'm trying to remember the first time I heard of Saint, but it's got to be, 1985, maybe 86.
We put out our first album in '84, so it would have been
There you go.
84, 85.
Yeah, yeah. That's a long time.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
That's really cool. It's 40
So
years, man.
we started Sanctuary in '85, and of course this year coming up is our 40th anniversary. It's your 40th anniversary.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's been a great 40 years.
Yes, it has been. So take us back to the very beginning, the beginnings of the band. I know you're the one that put the original band together and kind of led it through the years. Talk about that.
Well, I started out, as a sound engineer. I worked with a gentleman named Mike Noctegal, and he kind of got me involved in the whole music industry thing. And then I met a group of guys, John Mahan and Russ Cook, Bob Page, and they had a band called Power Faith, and I started kind of managing them. And then I started writing lyrics for them. And the next thing you know, I'm writing my own songs. And we formed the band The Gentiles, and that kind of broke up, as so many do. And I just had this real calling to go out and minister and do the heavy metal thing. There really wasn't very much metal going on at the time, especially, the traditional type of like the British style metal and the black leather and the studs, and that's all fun. And I put together Saint.
That's awesome. And gosh, what a great beginning. The band really hit pretty hard from the very beginning. You had a lot of instant fans, I remember. And
yeah, it was, I mean, we had our shtick, I guess, as far as what we did, but I really wanted to have an outreach for people who were into bands like Judas Priest or Accept or Dio or Black Sabbath, Alice Cooper. Those are the influences that really drove me at the time.
Yeah. And I think they were the influence that drove most of the movement at the time, weren't they?
I believe so.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to remember the first time that I actually saw you live in concert. And I think it was probably around 1987, maybe. I remember it was at a school in California.
Oh, that would have been the His Festival, I believe.
No, because I saw you there too.
Oh, wait. Was that with Barren Cross?
Yes.
Okay, yes. And I don't remember the name of the school. His was in Fontana, and I'm not sure where this one was at. It's a long time ago.
It was a long time ago, but I just remember it was my first exposure, really, to, besides listening to the music,
right?
On record album.
Yeah.
And for those of you that are a little younger, it's kind of like a CD, only bigger. Vinyl, but yeah, and I just remember being totally blown away. And then I guess that Josh Kramer actually lived at my house for a while.
Right.
You guys were on hiatus one time, and Josh, I think in those days, was the old singer. Jim Laverty lived with me, and Barren Cross went out on tour, and Jim offered his bedroom for Josh if he wanted to stay there for, I think it was a month or something. But I got to know him, and then of course got to know the music a little better too. So you guys have had a very, very full career, and you and I were talking before we started about there are ups and downs. Talk about it a little bit.
Well, the ups were, the highlights of Wars of the Sun and Time's End and Too Late for Living. But, you have a group of guys, and egos and everything else get in the way. what the original intent is as to what we were doing. And then there's also the financial thing. Most people don't really know that these bands out there, they're really working hard for not very much. As far as being able to sustain a life, for their families and what have you. But so a lot of those ups and downs took place, and we had like a 10-year hiatus. Then in 2003, I got a hold of Josh, and we went ahead and put out In the Battle and several other albums. And it's just been a fun ride.
Yes. So Immortal Fest has been a really fun thing for all of us, hasn't it? I mean, all the old bands, and some of them are getting back together for the first time in, some of them, a couple decades.
Well, yeah, Immortal, I think, has really reignited the whole movement. Steve Barhurst, or however you say his name, I sometimes mess that up, but he really did a great service to the metal community. He really did. I mean, he's an awesome man.
He is. He totally is. And I just got an email from him this morning, working on more details for the next one.
Nice.
So I'm really excited that he has a burden for it, because he loses money on this. He doesn't make money on it.
Yeah.
It's been just really a labor of love, and what a great place. So Morten, this place that we have, Immortal Fest, is an expo center, and stage, a very professional stage. The lighting is incredible with all the lasers and with everything that he's got. So it's really a first-class place. And what a great place to hold this.
It's the best stage I've ever played on.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. That says a lot.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I heard about you guys first in 1997. So obviously I was in my diapers when you put out your first record. So it was a little while until I heard about it. One friend handed me a CD with you, and there was just one track with you guys and one with, I think, Vengeance and Barren Cross, Tourniquet, Deliverance, and the Holy Soldier, I think, and a few others. I had to hide it because my parents wouldn't let me listen to that kind of stuff. It still took a little while for me to convince them that this was some godly stuff. But really, really awesome, and really cool to meet you, Richard, because you guys really, really, really pioneered some stuff.
Well,
really early on. That's so cool.
How does it feel to know that your album was contraband in some homes?
Or put behind the counter at the Christian bookstore. I mean, it's funny because from my perspective, we didn't get a lot of flack. We were pretty well accepted everywhere we went. There was a lot of bands that maybe got skewered by certain evangelists and whatnot, but we kind of we were able to evade all that. And it was kind of shocking because here we're out there with the black leather and studs on and everything, and it's like we just kind of dodged a bullet on a lot of the scrutiny.
Well, that's good.
I was on a radio interview one time, and it was a total setup. I mean, all they really wanted to do was attack, but that was one of the very few times that we ran into anything like that.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you didn't have to go through it. Although I guess in a lot of ways that kind of scrutiny and that kind of opposition made the movement even stronger.
Well, yeah, you definitely, it causes you to grow a little bit, maybe try to understand better how people, what they feel, and all that.
Yeah, God's church always seemed to expand when people try to shut it down. What I feel like what can shut it down, the church, is more like when we get the message wrong. But Yeah, but just suppressing us will not kill us.
Yeah, you're not going to shut Jesus down. That's just
No.
not going to happen.
Yeah.
Morten, did you go through some of that in Denmark when you guys first started? You were the first Christian metal band that really put yourselves out there.
Yes, so that was more like 2005, and not much. We tried to play in a few churches and church camps early on, and nobody wanted us to play there. They didn't get it. So, but not like any like hateful comment. Not much. Not that I can remember, at least. But I tend to remember the good stuff. But then later on, as soon as we caught on in the secular scene, everybody wanted us in their church.
Yeah.
Maybe not per se in the churches, but at the summer camps, we've been playing like very conservative church camps, like way off out in a tent somewhere, because they wanted us to talk to the young people, and so we've been invited to almost every single congregation, and eventually, but it took a few years. Somehow they needed to see that. I think once we got a little cool out in the secular scene, they wanted that cool stuff inside the church. So it's a little hypocrisy there, but it's all good.
True. I remember, speaking of that, I remember when the television network in Denmark actually did a special about you guys. Rich, they interviewed a lot of people throughout Denmark, showed the band on stage. They also interviewed your parents.
Yeah.
Who were not excited about what you were doing.
That was a little painful. I had to call them twice. So this was national TV, and they really wanted that to be part of the story behind the band, and so it's sort of like a documentary of what we were doing. And they called me, and I said, "Sorry, guys, there's just no way. That's not gonna." And the producer called me back and really tried to convince me, and I went back to my parents and asked them about it and said, "What if you know every single question beforehand and everything? You can really."
Yeah.
I think my parents probably saw it as an opportunity for them to also put their message out there, because they're allowed to say whatever they wanted to say. And I mean, it turned out quite all right, but the journalist did not stick. So, yeah.
They just weren't the biggest fans. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So, we've been learning. Yes.
What can you do?
So, Richard, you've been a Christian for 50 years.
Yep.
You've been around the church and around the Christian community, and I wonder if you'd talk a little bit about your spiritual life, and how God has brought you through 50 years of being a Christian, and what life is like for you today as a 50-year-old Christian. Yes.
Right. Well, sure. Yeah, I started, when I first got saved, I was like 19, and I was a full-on turn or burn Christian.
Yeah.
If you do this, you're going to hell. If you do that, you're going to hell. And I was totally, on hindsight, it was, I don't know, works-based, and throughout the years, through my own personal struggles and stumbling and everything else that you go through in life, I've learned that grace really takes, there's so much grace in Christ. Yes. He said that, his yoke is easy, and it is easy. It's so simple. All you have to do is give your life to him, and then let the Holy Spirit transform you. You're going to have a heck of a time transforming yourself. And relying on yourself to do things. And it also leads to, self-righteousness and all the other things. And so, I lived through a lot of that self-righteous, Christian zealot type stuff. But, as I've grown older, it's, I've just learned that you need to be respectful of people, and kindness goes a long way, and grace goes a long way.
Yes, absolutely. And don't you become more and more convinced of His grace the older you get there? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm just, I hear it all the time, from my own pastor, I'm definitely not a perfect person. I'm far from it. And, I stumble just like everybody else does. I've learned to accept that I don't, I don't say that it's okay that you stumble or that your sin is okay, but the bottom line is it's going to happen, and 9 times out of 10 you're going to learn from the experience.
Yes, yes. Yeah, absolutely. But Jonas in Kenya said it's funny how so many of us had that period of hiding the music from our parents.
Did you do that as well, Richard? Or were your
No,
parents
I
very
didn't
strict?
have that problem. My parents were, I was raised, basically uh, to be a cigarette smoking, drinking, type. I didn't know even what the Holy Spirit was until after I got
Mm,
saved when I was 19. I
Wow,
had
all right.
no idea.
Mm.
interesting. So you were definitely not raised as a Christian. This was,
No, no, no,
Mm.
no. My parents were pretty much anti-Christian.
Mm.
I think that they were victims of, I guess for no better word, religion.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
they were victims of the do's and the don'ts, and and just like our human nature is, you try to take something away from me or tell me I'm going to go to hell because of this reason or that reason,
Mm.
then you end up with rebellion. I mean, and that's why I talk so much about how we need to be, have grace and love people, and not
Mm.
do the attack.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And there's so many that have come through that. Morten, you were kind of raised very, very strictly
Yeah.
as well, very kind of a legalistic church.
And in a really good Christian home. So they were
Yeah,
very Christian, just anti-metal.
yeah,
And I remember
yeah,
having my jeans with holes in them and spikes that I had a trip to Oslo and got to hang out with some of the early bands like Self-Minded and very inspired by that and the early hardcore scene and X-Tall and all these. I saw them have like earrings and cool
yeah,
spikes in their pants and all this stuff. So obviously, I jumped right on that. That was just down my alley. I just thought it looked so cool, and I wore that home one weekend. I was living in Copenhagen at the time, but I grew up on the West Coast, so that's yeah, sort of the Danish Bible Belt, you can say I grew up in.
yes.
And my mom said, "You can't wear these pants to church." So okay, guess I'm not going to church then. She's not too
Oh,
happy about that. But she knew I was still a Christian. So yeah, it was just a lot of debating. It's got tiring over the time.
yeah,
After a long while, we just agreed on I'm gonna turn the music down when you come into my room, and then I can turn it up again when you go out. So I always respected their view on it. I don't feel like I ever like I never really felt the need to be rebellious in that or anything. My parents were also quite old, so I always, in some regards, thought of them a little bit more like grandparents, I guess you can say.
Yeah, I've always kind of admired people that were raised in a Christian home, you know. But in hindsight, I've learned a lot from just basically from all of the struggles that I went through. I struggled with a lot of things of my childhood and the addictions that I ended up having for a long time. But
Mm.
Jesus has really brought me through a lot.
yes. And that's really the hope, isn't it? That you talk about his grace, but I think the word grace can't be used without the word hope, because
Right.
the very thing that gives us hope, isn't it? Richard, to know that, okay, here's an area that I'm struggling with, but I know that I have real hope because of his grace to get me through it. And when you've been a Christian for 50 years, you can look back and say, he brought me through this and this and this.
Right.
Now you have
Right.
a story.
I think a lot of that was part of the reason why I was so turn and burn at the beginning, because of the background, my background that I grew up with.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, and all those things shape who we are, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we're also all into metal and extreme stuff and extreme messages and extreme packaging. And that's an extreme way of expressing it that many of us start out with, I guess. And then we soften up over the years because we meet real people
Yeah.
who struggle with real stuff, and we struggle with tons of stuff ourselves. And some of us even become parents. After I had Max, oh man, did I figure out I'm a big screw up and failure myself because he's copying me. That's hard when you see yourself being copied in the worst way sometimes, because
Yes.
all of a sudden you're teaching a little man.
And you think, okay, now I know
Yeah.
what my parents went through, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, Richard, you've got a great tour coming up that I want to talk about, and I'm excited that you guys are still out there, still doing some music.
That's
You've
so
got
cool.
a bit of a lineup change. You're headed to Europe. You and I are going to be together in Switzerland, and I'm
Yep.
excited
Excited.
to have you at Elements of Rock. It'll be great to have you there. But your lineup is going to be just a little different. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So we're going to be absent. Jerry Johnson, he's not going to tour with us on this one, and then Dave Nelson isn't going to be able to make it. So we're going to have Eli Princeton come in, who's just a fantastic singer.
Yes.
And then Matt and I are going to pretty much carry the rhythms. Jared's going to be there. It's going to be fun, though. I think that I think we'll pull it off. I think that people are going to have a great time. We're going to have a great time.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you are, and I know they are. And you will absolutely love the folks at Elements of Rock. Great folks. There were a lot of festivals that came out of the original Bob Fest, and was one of them that we started in Switzerland. And right from the very beginning, honestly, Richard, it's just been the greatest people.
Right.
Yeah.
We're also going to play Full Metal. We have a show in Hamburg, and then we have a show in Hagen, and I'm not quite sure what the venues are at those two places yet. I'm waiting for the details.
Good. So if you're in
That's
Switzerland
awesome.
or Germany, and Morten, you're right. You're connected to Germany.
Yeah, I mean, Hamburg is 4 or 5 hour drive from here. Sometime we'll fly out from Hamburg.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So-
who knows? Maybe I'll catch you there.
Jump in the car and drive over. But
Yeah.
some great folks in Germany. I'm excited for your tour. You're going to have a great time there. So tell us what the people can expect from your concerts there in Europe.
Well, we're going to come out swinging. This is going to be, heavy metal to its finest. At Full Metal, I think that we're doing a Sunday morning, kind of like a service. So we'll maybe hit some of, if there are any mellower saint songs like Through You or The Chosen One, that kind of stuff. Maybe end it with The Plan To. But the main show on Saturday night, it's going to be a lot like what we played at Immortal at the Immortal Fest.
Yeah.
We've added some different, we can't keep playing the same songs over and over, so we've added some other songs to our set list.
Awesome.
But, yeah.
And you will notice also that even though it's the other side of the world, you will have a lot of people singing along, especially early songs.
Yeah. I'm excited. I'm really excited.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's a blessing, isn't it?
Yes.
That's part of
Did you play Europe much back in the day?
The last time I was over, and I don't know if is Norway considered Europe, or is that Scandinavia?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Scandinavia's Europe too.
We played at the Nordic Fest about 10 years or so.
Awesome. Yeah, I did too. When did you play there?
It was
you can remember.
2010, I think.
2010?
Yeah. So that was 14 years ago.
yeah. I think we played there in 11 or 12. So
okay.
I think I was there that year, wasn't I, Richard?
I don't think you were.
Maybe
I would. I would remember. I got to meet Carl Johnson there, which was a great. It's such a great
Johannes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and of course he's one of the promoters for Light the Dark.
Oh, okay.
As well, yeah.
Yeah.
And Johannes is such an interesting guy, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
I remember in 1999 we got together, and he said, "I've got this idea for a heavy metal Bible. What do you think?" And we started talking about it then, and now, all of these years later, 25 years later, it's in 12 languages.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Bob, do you know when was Bob Fest? When did it start?
1999. Yeah.
99. Okay, I was almost there. One of the first one. I have a really funny story from 2001. I think I lived in Oslo at the time, so we had a big bus from Subchurch. So Subchurch is this. If you don't know, it's a great church in Oslo where a lot of Christian metal folks. X-Tall is leading worship there, and there's all these great bands coming out of that church. It's really, really fantastic. So I moved there because I couldn't find any members here to play Christian metal with. So I thought, let's just go to the neighboring country because Oslo is just an hour flight. But we had this bus trip. I joined this bus from Oslo going to Bob Fest in Sweden, and we went into a little rest just for a little break. And there's this this gas station with a tiny little restaurant with two young girls serving some very simple meals. And then all of a sudden, these like 30 black metal leather types all walk into the place, and they got very, very uneasy, like, oh, what's going on here? Thought like it's some gang coming to rob them or something. And then just to make a little bit of fun, one of these Norwegian folks was screaming from the back, "You guys got any human meat?"
Whoa.
They're just like ready to run out of there. And really, these were just the friendliest folks you'd ever meet. The metal crowd and the Christian metal crowd, especially many times. They're just like the best, softest guys ever.
Yes.
They got to know that.
Well, and the ministry there is still going strong.
Yeah.
And David Husvik is pastoring that. David was the drummer for X-Tall, still is. And
is he a pastor now in Subchurch?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Church, yeah, he has been for a few years, and David will be playing the drums for Tourniquet also.
Yes.
And will be there with us at Light the Dark Festival. So so we've got there are very few people that could handle that. The Kirkpatrick.
Yeah, and he was always a fan of the first records. I remember David, when I moved to Oslo, he told me the first 3 Tourniquet records, they were his favorites. And me too, yeah.
But he's a phenomenal drummer, and
absolutely fantastic.
Folks, X-Tall did our worship at the very beginning for Bob Fest, and then I think at the very beginning when we first started Nordic Fest too. So yeah, great band.
Yeah, Peter from Extel was also leading worship when I was there in 2000. I think he still is.
Yes, yes, yeah, great folks. Richard, I'm excited for what lays ahead for you. Do you know yet if you're doing Immortal Fest this next year? Or
I have not had any contact. I don't know how many people Steve has gotten a hold of, so I don't know that we'll be there or we won't.
it's just beginning.
Right.
Just starting to lay it out right now. So I'm sure you'll.
I'd love to go back, but you know, I mean, I understand there's a lot of bands that haven't played there yet, so we'll just have to see what doors open.
Yes, good. But tell us about this album that's on the screen,
Immortalizer. Yeah. Well, we put that out, what, about 2 months ago?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a fun album. Turned out really great. Jared, don't know what I'd do without him, our drummer, producer. And you know, it's just an action-packed, let's go get them type album.
Yes. Great album, by the way. And it is Original Saint.
Yes.
So
That's awesome.
You kind of took us back to the feel of the very beginning, and I like that. That's a good thought.
Yeah, we you know, I only wrote like 3 of the songs on there, which tend to be more Saint sounding, obviously. But Jerry and Matt have studied, you know, and they both have played in the band for quite some time now. Yeah. You know, and to keep it true to the brand, that's, you know, they've really stepped up and made the album great as to what it is. I'm hoping that those guys will continue to write similar, you know, but different, because we don't want to repeat songs so much. But yeah, I think that it turned out really great. Yeah. I'm very happy with this production.
That's awesome. Yeah, it is great. You guys did a great job. And also, don't be afraid to repeat some of the old ones too. You
got a great sound also on the Heaven Fell album. Was that 2022?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
that was a fun album too. That was
some good stuff.
Yeah, that was probably one of our best albums, I think, in my opinion. You know, people like to refer back to Too Late for Living and Time's End. And maybe I've just heard them too many times.
It's different when it's your own music sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. And I am my own worst critic. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
So I remember I was doing a wedding, and Tony Orlando was the best man in the wedding.
Wow.
It was a wedding for his drummer, who's a good friend, and his drummer actually used to play with Ray Charles before that. So very accomplished drummer, and he asked me if I would do the wedding. And so I asked Tony, I said, do you ever get tired of singing Tie a Yellow Ribbon Round the Old Oak Tree? It's a classic song, and every time we go to a war or a scuffle around the world, that song comes back, and you know, it's been played gazillions of times. And I said, do you ever get sick of performing it? Because he's performed it thousands of times.
Right.
And he says, you know, every time I play the song, he said, I hear the cash register.
Well, I don't. I love playing that. I love playing the old songs.
Yeah.
You know, I don't sit around. I really don't listen to that much music, honestly. But yeah, I don't sit around and listen to them.
Yeah.
There's albums I've had, you know, that we did that I haven't heard for probably years.
Yeah. And it's great to hear them again. And that's what he kind of laughed it off. And he said, no, he said, there are certain songs that people want to hear when they come to your concert. And even if I'm tired of it, they're not. It's
right.
And if you ever stop doing, you know, your basic first album songs, Late for Living, you know, people would be disappointed, wouldn't
Oh,
they?
they would be.
Yeah.
And you know, when we play those live, it's like it's exciting because now you get to play it live. You're not just listening to it, you're actually living and feeling and becoming the song. And that's so important with entertainment. Then you can draw the people in, and the message that's in the song itself really comes a lot more alive. At least for me, it does.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Richard, thank you for all of your years in this ministry.
Mhm.
Well, thank Jesus for all those years. He's the one
Yeah,
that's made
yeah,
that happen. Yeah. I just want to point out that I do this for Jesus, but Jesus actually did this for me.
yes,
You know what I mean?
Mm.
I'm just some guy, and he could have picked anybody to do this. And I'm not going to be the guy that gets to go, "Oh Lord, Lord, I did this for you." No, he does this for us.
Mm.
great
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah. That's so cool. And I'm so thankful for all of you older bands. There's so many of you guys getting together and putting out new records, and it's just so cool. Yeah. Also
Well, Morten,
to
it sounds
hear.
like to me you have some good stuff going on for yourself. I'm excited for you.
Well, it's just such a blessing to have all you guys with more experience in the scene still out there, and to hang out with and reach out to, and it's really cool. And also to hear such a humble heart is just beautiful because, like, I mean, I guess all of us we shouldn't be too too impressed with ourselves. It's Jesus doing it and calling us to it. And that's something we talked about recently in our little new project, like how God is calling us to partner with him on this. And it's really not because he's in that he couldn't do it without us. You get less impressed with yourself the more Jesus is
Right.
doing stuff and showing you stuff. And it's just beautiful to hear that somebody like you has been in this for 40 years to still have that heart.
Yeah, every time I get impressed with myself, I get prodded. I get, the Holy Spirit's very convicting. It's like, yeah, you're so great. Yeah, no, you're not.
That reminds you of a few things, right? Yeah. But the great thing is that, and Morten, you were just saying this, that these are fathers in the faith, fathers in the movement, part of the history of the Christian metal movement, and it's been a wonderful ride all these years. And
even for me as a teenager, I was looking so much toward Extol and Tourniquet and Deliverance and Mortification and Precious Death, whatever I could get my hands on in the late 90s that made it all over to the tiny music festivals where I could actually buy CDs. So we'll always just go there, split up in groups, the 5 of us who like metal, and make sure we bought all the CDs with skulls on it and blood and whatever. Make sure we covered it, and then we'll circulate them between us.
or if you go back to our beginning, Richard, all of our cassette tapes.
Right.
Yeah. That was a different day. Richard, thank you so much for joining me today and joining us today. Morten, thank you as well.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Richard.
Yes. Folks, if you are in Germany or you live in Europe or you'd like to, this tour coming up will be great and good things on the horizon. Richard, we'd love to keep up with you, have you back and hear what's going on. If you have any new news, let us know, and we'd love to hear about it. You have a lot of fans out there watching us today. And so, folks, thank you for joining us today. And don't forget, you are blessed. So go and be a blessing.